Hey everyone, Tactics here, bringing you guys another Keystone Master video, this time with the Mists of Tirna Scithe dungeon. As with my previous videos, this will be from my perspective as a Guardian Druid, and I'll go over the route that we use, as well as any tips or tricks you can use throughout the dungeon to just make it a bit easier. If you want to check out the VOD that I'm going over, or you want the Mythic Dungeon Tool route we used, I'll link both in the description below. With that said, let's just hop straight into the dungeon, again on 1.25 times speed, just to make things a little quicker. So of course we use the Night Fae skip at the beginning. I definitely recommend having a Night Fae for this dungeon. It makes, that skip alone is very useful, and then the mushroom stat buffs that you'll see later, they also are helpful, but that skip alone just makes percent a lot nicer and lets you get a prideful for the first boss. So you really want to try and have Night Fae. It shouldn't be too hard with a lot of the more popular specs in Mythic Plus being Night Fae, with hunters, druids, mages as well. They're all being Night Fae. So ideally your group has a Night Fae, but it is not the end of the world if you don't have one. These Spike Claws, they have a jump attack. You can use Binding here. We didn't use it on the pull because it's necrotic, so we save it for a little bit later. But you do have to make sure these guys are purged before you kill them. Otherwise, they are going to hurt a lot. And see here, we're just having them bound, and they won't jump while bound. It makes them slightly easier to deal with. Alright, moving on. This is a scary pull on Fortified Week. These Soul Cleavers deal a ton of damage. I believe we actually lust here sometimes on Fortified Week, depending on key level. You just want to make sure you kick the big cast from the Harvester. The Spirit Bolts, any extra kicks can go into it. But these Soul Cleavers, they will heal when they have this buff on them. So you can stun them or kite them a little bit. Other than that, though, just this Tirnan Villager who doesn't do too much. He has the Frontal Cone and, of course, this Overgrowth, which can be turtled, as you can see. It can be feigned off. It can be spell reflected. I believe it can be diffused as well. So all those things work on that, just so you don't actually get CC'd by the seeds. Yeah, Feign Death works as well. And we're going around to a little skip here. So this skip works for, I believe, 4 classes can do this. So Rogues can sap this guy right here. Priests can Mind Soothe this guy right here. And Demon Hunters can imprison this guy right here. That will let you, because it reduces their aggro radius, to walk right by and not have a problem. Hunters can Freezing Trap and run by first, and then Feign to drop aggro, I believe that works. Similar with Mages and Invis and Polymorph. But note that those will still put you in combat if you run by this guy. Aside from that, the other thing that does work is Monks. Monks can paralyze this guy and then Ring of Peace him so that he's over here, and it won't put you in combat. So all of those things work for the skip. If you don't have any of those classes, Invis Potting here is perfectly fine. Yeah, make sure you are hugging this wall even if it's CC'd, because it can get a little spooky. And then you have a double Soul Cleaver, double Harvester pack. Again, making sure there's big kicks on both the Harvesters, and being careful with your tank against the Soul Cleavers, because they really do truck. And then we do have the mushrooms over here. You'll want everyone, assuming you have the Night Fae, of course, to grab the stat shrooms. The other ones just give, I believe it's just max health, which even for the tank is not too beneficial. You'd rather have the stat shrooms. But it's a nice little boost, especially for this first boss. As you'll see, it's a bit of a DPS race. Now, there was a strat using MDI, and I've had a couple people ask about it, where they actually keep the Soul Cleaver alive with a Disc Priest specifically. You can do that. You can apply a 20% magic damage taken increase if you have a Disc Priest. Obviously, for our group composition, Double Hunter, Warrior, it doesn't make any sense for us to do that. But if you're running with like a couple magic damage users, right, like a Boomkin, a Fire Mage, it can be pretty beneficial, like a Shadow Priest and Affliction Lock, to keep that guy, especially on Tyrannical weeks like it is currently, to keep that guy and apply the 20% magic damage taken to this boss here. But again, that does only work for Disc Priests. Shadow Priests can't do it. They have to have the Mind Control talent. This will spawn our Prideful just before the boss. As I mentioned, both the Night Fae skip and that little Mind Soothe skip allow this timing to happen, which is very useful. And we'll go through this Prideful. And then we'll have this carried into the boss with Bloodlust. Again, on Tyrannical Week, which is... This boss is... I would say it's the... It's not a wall, but the tree scales with Tyrannical. So it's a lot of HP you have to burn. This fight is long. Alright, so we're bringing that right into the boss fight. And then we're focusing down the tree. Now, our lust timing here, we decided to use it just before Ingra was vulnerable. And that's so that it carries through the entire vulnerability. And then it also lasts for the second tree phase. Right, because we have Prideful to help burn through this first tree phase, so we don't really need it for the second. Yeah, we don't have a fear prevention here. Shaman Tremor Totems, very, very good if you're running with a Resto Shaman. Super solid. And then we're popping Lust here, and we're just burning this guy as far as we can. I believe we get him to like 50% on this burn. Something like that. Yeah, this fight lasts a long time. And then we have the Bloodlust, 20 seconds of it anyways, to help burn this second tree guy down. But yeah, this fight just goes on, man. It really does go on. Yeah, but there's really not much here. You're just kicking Ingra every time the puddles go out and pulling him out. That's all I really do. And again, reminder that Droman, just like the other trees, has Bewildering Pollen, which is that frontal cone you want to step out of. But aside from that, I mean, just kicks can go into Ingra whenever. I do recommend, if you have range, see how they're all staying together. All three of them right here, they're all together. And that is because of that damage right there is a big dot on the group. And then the fear, you do kind of want to be feared together. They're all running together with that fear. But yeah, this boss isn't terribly difficult. It has some pretty tight DPS timings. Like if you let too many casts of Ingra go off, then you can just die to damage. It's a lot of damage going out if he gets to ramp up with his casts. Yeah, we're gonna have to kill the tree 3 times total here, and he has got a lot of HP. Should I just skip ahead? Yeah, let's skip ahead. Nothing new is happening here. Alright, we're killing Ingra there. Okay. Yeah, that's a long boss though. I think it was 3.5 minutes. Still, it feels long. Nightface Seed is right there. Make sure you're grabbing it. Also note, through this window, okay, we're watching Dreamweaver. She goes right, so this is not ideal. But you can pull through that window every single time. And if she doesn't go right, you get a good maze every time in terms of trash percent. So keep that in mind. We always pull it no matter which direction she goes. We always pull through that window. It's very good in terms of percent. Yeah, and as I said, actually, as I pointed out, you can see which window, when you're coming down the hallway, we saw her go through this right door. That means that is 100% the correct door. You don't even need to do this first puzzle. You can just watch where she goes. Some bolstering fun here. I'll move on. Yeah, there's going to be no trash here now because we killed it through the window, and not ideal. Right is definitely the worst beginning, just because you can pull through that window and get extra trash usually if you don't go right. So, and all this trash is fairly straightforward. The stingers you can interrupt with a CC. The dash out, you can like stun them or disorient them to prevent them from dashing out. Ursul's binding, I believe, works. Binding works for that. But otherwise, this is some of the easiest trash in the dungeon in here. Especially on fortified weeks, you hope you don't hit a mini boss, but yeah, Shapers and Tenders both just have the one kick you want to make sure you're getting off. The Guardians are a bit annoying. You can just CC after that Rampage starts casting to perma to just get rid of it, right? A Disorient, Paralyze from Monks. anything like that to just fully stop him, and he'll wait until his next cast to continue. But if you CC it while he's casting it like this, then he'll just recast after the CC is done. As you saw there, that tender did get a heal off. You can purge it, worst case. So if you miss a kick on that heal, just purge it off. Prideful in the maze. The maze isn't too eventful. Honestly, like the trash in this dungeon is actually quite easy outside of the first couple pulls. Right, that trash at the beginning is definitely by far the scariest stuff. Both I think for your tanks and for the rest of your party, because they also have the random damage casts. But this stuff is pretty easy, and the worms at the end of the dungeon, they're also not too bad, with the exception of one ad out there that I'll point out when we get there. But in general, I mean, this is one of the reasons Mist is one of the easier dungeons in the game right now. The timer's quite forgiving, similar to Necrotic Wake, and the trash is very easy. And the bosses, they can be a little rough on Tyrannical Week in terms of timing, like the last boss especially. The middle boss is never too difficult, the one we're coming up to now. And the first boss is just, it takes a long time. The first boss is a bit of a DPS check on Tyrannical, I will say. Just because the extra damage going out can be very spooky if you push the trees too slowly. But other than that, I mean, the dungeon is, especially compared to other Shadowlands dungeons right now, it's fairly forgiving. Ended up getting a mini boss there, not ideal. The best route through the maze is if she doesn't go right and you get no mini bosses, you'll be over 70% count after this maze, which is really good. Right. As you can see, you're making use of all the tools we have in our party to make sure I can drop necrotic stacks. That's something very, very important for necrotic. It's not just a tank thing, especially if you have classes that can help you out. Make sure you're helping out your tank. Ring of Peace, Binding Shot, as you saw, Typhoon, Ursul's Vortex, all those things are super good for helping your tank drop necrotic stacks and make his life a lot easier. The last Prideful in the Maze, and then I don't know if the next room is the boss. I think it's the room after. Yeah, there's not much to say for this boss. It's pretty straightforward. It's not too difficult, assuming you just make sure you're dodging the snowballs and your tank is kicking. What do? We have 2 hunters, so we'll just freezing trap the ad. This is the boss, yeah. You can all like stack up in a line-ish to make dodgeball much easier to dodge, just because it'll all go in one spot, so you don't have to stand like between the arrows like you see us do. It's not too big a deal either way though. Remember, only your tank can interrupt patty cake. And for freeze tag here, we're just alternating freezing traps, I believe. And if we miss something, we have Fear from the Priest, we have Ursul's and Binding. So we have a lot of things to deal with that illusionary Vulpin. You are going to have to deal with 3 of those phases, so try and just find the correct ad as quickly as possible and get it down. I don't think, maybe on lower difficulties you're able to burn the last 10% mid-cast, but I don't think anyone's been able to do it above a 15. Especially on Tyrannical Week, this just got way too much health. Yeah, this fight is pretty straightforward. It's not even too dangerous. The most dangerous part is this phase here, because that's where all the actual party damage is coming. And that Vulpin can be a little spooky. So yeah, immediately have to run away from it. Not the biggest deal. You'd much rather just have a loss of DPS time than get hit by that freezing trap, because that, I don't believe it one-shots you on this difficulty, but it gets pretty close. And combined with any other mechanic, you're dead, right? Combined with dodgeball, you're dead. Combined with the pulsing AoE damage, you're dead. If I missed a kick, don't look at that. Oh, my kick was on cooldown. How was my kick on cooldown? What did I do? Yeah, pretty easy fight. Let's skip a little bit. We'll skip ahead. We've seen it all. There we go. Jumping down here, Night Phase Seed right there. You can pick up. And then we have, again, some more straightforward trash. Staghorns, they have the shield kick, and they have the AoE heal that you want to kick as well. Acid Gullets will just volatile acid random players. You can stun to delay it, or any kind of CC to delay it. But it's just pulsing AoE damage on that person. The spooky stuff is coming up. I believe it pats around the next pull. We always go left here, by the way. I see some people go right, some people go left. I always go left. Just because it fills the percent out a little better depending on how your maze went. For example, if you're like 71%, it gives you perfect count. So those Ravagers, those are the two scary guys. Anytime you're pulling a Ravager, you're scared. So they put that poison dot on players. It does stack up. We have a priest here, so I am the only poison dispel. So I dispel a couple people there. Run to Africa to cleanse off my necrotic stacks, and then they come back. Those Reavers, they do jump out to apply that poison, so I believe things like Binding and Ursuls will work to interrupt it, assuming the player getting targeted is far enough away. But other than that, they just deal a lot of damage in general, so they are the spooky add in here. They are the only spooky add in here. Every other pull is quite simple and easy. Just full of these Gorgers, Staghorns, and Acid Gullets. Note, because of our percent here, this is like a 6.5% pull, as you can see on the right hand side, and we only need 3 for the Prideful. So just watch your percent here. Again, there's never going to be a standardized percent you're at this point, just because of how mists work with the maze. So you're always going to have to wing it a little bit and just watch your percents and keep an eye out and be careful on packs, so you don't push too early or get your Prideful mid-pack or when only one thing is dead, because that can kill you. Because this Prideful, especially if you're pulling Ravagers, if you get it on that Ravager pack, like if you had a really good maze, that Ravager pack could be your Prideful. It would be very, very scary if those Ravagers are still alive when your Prideful spawns. Very scary. So just keep an eye out on your percent here. In terms of Bloodlust, I think I forgot to mention it. We just used it on cooldown. I believe we used it on Dreamweaver Phase 2. Or Mistcaller, sorry. Mistcaller Phase 2. On Fortified Weeks, I believe we used it on that second pull we did, the one with the tree. And then we used it again in the maze. Especially if we get a mini-boss, we normally lust the mini-boss. And then we'll have Lust always for this last boss. You really want Bloodlust for Tred'ova, because she's very spooky. On Fortified and Tyrannical Week, she will kill you. Watch those swirlies. They are a big knockback. I have maybe, cannot confirm nor deny, possibly been knocked off the edge before. So just keep an eye out for that. And as you see here, we're going to end up at around 95%, which means one pack on the right side, and we're good. We're going to go do that before, because we actually both want Bloodlust and Prideful, and our Bloodlust is still on a form and timer. So it's a little awkward, but we'll deal with it. We'll go through and pull this first. There is an argument on like Fortified Weeks to just do this after the boss, so you don't have to kill that Prideful in terms of time saving, which is worthwhile on higher key levels, I would say. But also, I mean, depending on your timer, like we have 7 minutes here, we're not concerned. We want to make sure we kill the boss, because that's the only thing that's going to make us fail this timer, is if we wipe to this boss. So having Prideful for the beginning is just going to help with that. If you're cutting it close, you can opt to skip that Prideful and try and kill the boss just to save time, but we're not cutting it that close. So we are going to kill this Prideful and go into the boss with it. And in general, that it will be my recommendation for 15 keys, is don't worry about skipping Prides. Kill them, use their buff, it'll just make your life easier. Be a little slower technically, but none of us are MDI runners, so it's not too big a deal. Yeah, Bloodlust is a little awkward here. We're going to just Bloodlust as soon as we get it, I believe. It's a little unfortunate on the timing, but it is what it is. Right, those parasites, make sure you always kick those. Right, always kick those. Mind Link here, if you look, it's on him. Only he needs to run away. If he runs off to Africa, no one here even got the link. Just the one target needs to get away. Alright, these larvas, we always bring them together and then drop a CC on them. I believe there was a binding there. Yeah, there's a binding here. And for consumption here, we only kick if people are going to die. Only if people are going to die. So see there, we were pretty low health going into it, so we did kick near the end. But we try and kick as late as possible or never. That is the goal for those. Because during those consumptions, nothing else is happening. Right? They don't spawn ads. They don't shoot puddles on the ground. Right? None of that stuff is happening. It is very, very safe. You're just taking the ticking damage. So if you can keep the boss in that phase the whole time, definitely do so. Otherwise, just notice we're trying to stay close to our healer here. Again, don't get too lost and like end up way too far away from your healer to actually get healed. It can make your life very difficult, and that's how people die on this fight. And so here I believe, yeah, we'll hold for like the whole consumption here. Able to kill the boss, and then very healthy. There's nothing else happening, just the consumption. It's just free damage on the boss. Obviously, if your healer is struggling, make sure you get a kick on it. But aside from that, it's just pulsing damage. Make sure you're avoiding the puddles on the ground, but because these puddles, especially on higher tyrannical, they hurt a lot. Even as a tank, if you see I get hit by any of them, it deals a lot of damage. A lot of damage. These ads, we're just alternating binding shots, I believe, is what we're doing here. Grouping them up binding shot, and then they're pretty easy to just AoE down. Yeah, in worst case, you can. Like, if you're unsure, you see the turtle going out there, perfectly fine. That's the best spot to use immunity to. You don't want to die. Pop your turtle, pop bubble, pop ice block, and then blink afterwards after it's landed. Because you'd much rather take a tick of the puddle on the ground than take the initial hit. But that is it. That is it. That wraps up this Keystone Master walkthrough for Mr. Tirna Scithe. If you guys found this video useful, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content like it. If you have any questions at all about this dungeon, other dungeons, about Guardian Druid, anything like that, feel free to leave a comment below, or you can come check me out on my Twitch stream at Tactics and ask me there. I'll be posting the remaining dungeon videos over the course of the next week, so make sure to keep an eye out for those. But that is it for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.